If you clicked on this video, odds are you're chasing a 315 bench. But before we begin, drop everything and comment below what you've actually benched. I want to see a real 1 rep max. No, not that one. No, I know you wished you hit that one. Now, that one's based on a 1 rep max calculator. No, an 8 rep max doesn't count. What you've actually hit, your heaviest bench. I want everybody commenting below so we get a sense of perspective before we go any farther. That being said, if you're new to this channel, my name's Johnny Candido of Candido Training HQ. And today we're going to talk about just that. What is the actual likelihood that you will bench 315 by body weight using real openpowerlifting.org data? Not gassing you up saying, oh, only 1% of people bench 225 with some Joe Rogan AI voice. I'm talking real data on what you should set yourself as a standard to, and maybe you should have already hit it. We'll see. Also, at the end of this video, I'll go over a 405-pound bench for every body weight. So for anybody who's got rat brain symptoms, just stick around so that my retention rate doesn't tank and the algorithm doesn't screw me over. Thank you. Okay, so firstly, we have 264 plus. Now, keep in mind, this is everybody 120 kilograms and more. So this includes Jesus Oliveira, Ray Williams, people 405 pounds, everybody. So the average weight's probably somewhere in the 300s here. Now, it's 64.5% bench 315 or more. So if you are this weight, if you're a 285-pound man, 300-pound man, you probably should bench 315. I would say that's to even, be even somewhat impressive. I do think you have to be above the average powerlifter. And keep in mind, most powerlifters do 1 to 2 meets in their entire life. So the average powerlifter, yes, definitely is stronger than the average person. However, if you train for any degree of focus, you should aim to be better than this. And if you don't have this right now, I am judging you. So the good news is if you're at this weight, you just should expect it. You should say, and if you're also someone who maybe thinks that you can't bench 315 regardless of your genetics, look at this and say, hey, if you bulk, you should be able to. You probably can. Okay, now obviously we expected that though. That's the heaviest weight class. Now at 264 or less, we see it be 59.8%. So you're still seeing above half can bench 315 or more. Again, this should be a white pill. And 264, that's not incredibly huge, especially if you're a taller man. I mean, that's a pretty impressive standard for the average person to basically be able to at least realistically hit that, I would say, with good training. Now, here's where things get interesting. At the 231-pound weight class, this is where it's 49.7%. So this is the first class where it's very, very slightly below half. So I also think that this is, again, another white pill for a lot of people in that you should be able to hit this. This is 231. Again, that is not a huge, super fat individual. And that is half of people doing a powerlifting meet. I mean, this includes people with disabilities, super old people. This includes literally even young people, even potentially, 14-year-olds who just happen to be, bulking a little bit too hard. Their abuelas are making too many empanadas and chimichangas and enchiladas. A lot of that here in San Antonio. That being said, again, so you should be able to hit this. And one thing to obviously keep in mind is that in the end of the day, when you bench 315, I would consider it to be undeniably impressive, but it's also meaning really you're doing most of your rep work, of course, with still 225, maybe up to 275. I would say where it really ascends beyond this is when you can reach 315 for 5. And I think 315 for 1 is way more achievable than a lot of people realize, especially still in the YouTube fitness sphere. I would say in the powerlifting specialized sphere, obviously everyone now thinks that everyone's benching 600 or 500 or everyone's Sean Noriega. That's obviously not at all the case. But I think these numbers actually are more optimistic than even I expected. At 205, now it's 35.2%. It's actually pretty interesting too that this is basically a 15% jump. So jump down. So it's a lot rarer once you go from 231 to 205. And of course, we all know that body weight is huge when it comes to the bench press. But to see just that kind of tipping point where then it becomes a fundamentally different game is interesting to see. So that's one of the cool things is if you're 200 pounds or less in bench 315 or more, you're starting to get undeniably impressive. But, being a top third of your group, it's impressive, but it's not crazy. Now in 2025 for the 183-pound weight class, there were 11,912 lifters, and out of them, how many bench 315 or more? 2,656. So this is where it's starting to get, again, more and more impressive, but it's still doable. And you get to see here where this is a really big sample size and it's only up to date. So, because a lot of lifters in the past, they weren't quite up to snuff. They were a little bit of, Bob Cousy era. Now we're in the Wembanyama era. So overall, that's 22.3% for 183. Now at 163, this is where things, again, get more and more elite. Now it's 10.8%. So if you are 163 and you can bench 315 or more, you are top 10% roughly lifter of all competing powerlifters. So again, a lot of people don't realize like just how impressive that is. Now, of course, maybe normies hear that and go like, oh, of course that's impressive. and we love the normies. We need the normies. And a lot of them become amazing lifters once they dedicate their time. So I'm not at all disparaging. But that being said, it is one of those things that is easy to take for granted. Like you see guys like Doki Kadama benching literally 500 pounds. I mean, there were multiple 500-pound 163 benchers just in 2025. And that can really warp your perception of what is impressive and what is elite and what is by definition, top 10%. For all my little fellas at 145, it is 4.67%. Yeah, I said it. That being said, so you see just how elite this is. At this point, you cut down from 10 to under 5% just by one weight class shift down. Now, obviously, I think this goes without saying. I don't think I've actually seen someone in a commercial gym weigh 145 and bench 315. Just ever. I've never actually seen it with my own two eyes. And even though there's YouTube videos of it, all the time, I think it's always important to remember, okay, our lived experience. Have we actually seen this? And if we haven't, that's pretty damn impressive. Now at 130 pounds, it is 1.51%. So obviously this is going to get very rare. And it'll actually be interesting to look at on 405 benches, at what point do they converge? So what impressiveness as far as rarity is 405 weight class wise compared to like 130 pounder benching 315. We'll see at the end of this video. But then when we go all the way down to 116 pound weight class, the smallest weight class in existence, it's two people. So it's 0.45%. There's two people in the world. Now here's where things get really interesting. For the 405 bench press, a 183-pound man, like I said, benches around 22%, will bench 315. For 405, it is 0.78%. So that shows you the degree of difficulty that it really is to add that extra plate. So I'll show on screen the differences in all weight classes for 405 versus 315 now, because what I ultimately want to emphasize is, okay, how many powerlifters who compete bench 225, 315, and 405? So for the grand total, to bench 225, it is 80% of all competing male powerlifters. Remember, that includes people with disabilities, mentally and physical. That includes people who are so old, it is hard to even drive to the actual competition. It includes a lot of people who you're not trying to compete against because they're in fundamentally different life situations, okay? Okay. Now, that being said, with 315, it is 32%. So 32% of powerlifters can bench 315 or more across all weight classes. So again, impressive, but absolutely doable. And finally, 405 is 4.16%. And this is, again, of all male powerlifters of all weight classes. So pretty interesting thing to see that the difference, especially the difference on weight classes, is even more of a gigantic factor when it comes to 405. So when it comes to 405, I mean, it is, it's non-existent in 116 and 130. And then once you reach 163, again, it's still rarer than a 116 pounder benching 315. And then when you bump up to those weight classes, since it has that 4% in total, that shows just how high it is on those bigger weight classes. And you already saw the graphic, so you see it in 264, 264 plus. That's where then you're getting 10% or more. And it really is almost easy to overlook just how incredible a 405 bench is at 183 or less versus just how, okay it is at, 225 pounds body weight. And by okay, I still mean top 6.4% at 231. So I shouldn't have said it like that. My bad. I mean, I'm contributing to liftflation by saying that. Still extremely impressive. But I think a lot of people wouldn't imagine that a 231 pounder benching 405 is equal to 163 or benching 315. Because sometimes we do just get enamored by those plates. But then again, all we care about is the plates, right, baby? So the main point of this video is just how body weight dependent it is and just how much progress you can make while gaining weight. But then if you're not, it is unbelievably harder to get to those upper percentiles going from 183 pounder benching 315 to then benching 405. And the moment we hit 315, what do we often say? 405's next, baby. It's not. 365's next. Actually, you know what? 330's next. Just hit that, okay? That's it, guys. If you want to bench 315 or more, sign up for the Candida Forever program, baby. Link is in the description. A lot of people make a lot of bench gains. I've coached a lot of people to bench 405 or more. Granted, they did usually weigh 230 or more. I think, one was 183 or less. Yeah, so the graphs make sense. The numbers make sense. And let's get it. Let's be motivated by the data. Don't black pill. There's actually a lot of optimism in these numbers. And a lot of people want to tell you that things are impossible. But you don't also need to meet ride the best lifters either. Just focus on the numbers and focus on your own self. Who cares about following a ton of lifters if it doesn't matter to you personally? That's what we're about at Candido Training HQ. It's giving self-improvement. Hi.